Today it's time to talk about toxins. We categorize toxins into three categories: heavy metals, plastics, and pesticides. They all have their unique effects on the body, but the net effect of all of these things are decreased energy production. So in an effort to optimize for that, we need to minimize these toxins, and we need to know how to get them out of our body. In some cases, we can significantly limit the input of these toxins. In other cases, they're just part of the environment. So we have to use different strategies to mitigate their effects. So let's jump in here and start with heavy metals. Metals are toxic by their nature. They serve no physiological purpose, and they have direct oxidative effects on the body, and they interfere with necessary minerals that your body needs. And this is something that is critical to understand. Metals antagonize specific minerals. This is called ionic mimicry, and essentially what it means is elements of similar size and charge can compete with one another. And so this will relate a little bit to the micronutrient video that we put out, where we were talking about maximizing the amount of minerals that you get, really focusing on getting the inputs. Now, in that video, the recommended amounts were amounts that were given by adequate intake, or RDA amounts. Those are minimum amounts to prevent disease from occurring. It does not take into account the toxicity of our environment, meaning that the amount of metals that you're being exposed to would necessitate an increased amount of the mineral that it antagonizes. So a couple of examples of this. Aluminum and silica are antagonistic to one another. Lead and calcium are antagonistic to one another. Mercury and selenium are antagonistic to one another. Cadmium and zinc are antagonistic to one another. And potassium and barium are antagonistic to one another. And all of these metals are pretty pervasive in our environment. We're being exposed every day, and there's ways that you can mitigate them. But let's talk about the specific effects or the pathologies that are associated with these different metals. With aluminum, it's a lot of neurodegeneration and diseases associated with neurodegeneration like Alzheimer's, MS, autism spectrum disorder. It also causes connective tissue weakness, bone demineralization, autoimmune activation, anemia, and oxidative stress, specifically in the brain and the kidney. Lead, also cognitive impairment, anemia, kidney disease, hypertension, peripheral neuropathy, immune dysregulation. Mercury, also mood disorders. It affects the brain. Autoimmune thyroiditis, so Hashimoto's, it can be a driving factor for. Cadmium is a very strong estrogen mimic, so it can cause estrogen dominance and all the downstream effects. It can cause kidney damage, and barium can cause muscle weakness and arrhythmias through potassium deficiency. Common exposures for these things are important to know. This is how we mitigate the input. So for aluminum, it's the kitchenware, cookware, anything made out of aluminum. Aluminum foil, it's in water treatment. Not every municipal water treatment, but many. And you can look at your municipality to find out if they add aluminum to the water or not. It's in antacids, it's in antiperspirants, and it's an adjuvant in vaccines. Now, what's interesting is that in my family, we don't have any of these things that we're exposed to, yet everyone's testing high in aluminum with an oligoscan, including my kids. And it's just everywhere in the environment. So I went and talked to the company Oligoscan to find out, over all the tests that have been done, hundreds of thousands of tests that have been done, what is the single highest metal that you see across the board? And they said aluminum. I also asked the HTMAexperts.com, which run hair tissue mineral analysis testing. And it is the highest metal found in hair sample. So it's everywhere, and there's no way to prevent it. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the soil, it's in the food. So the best way to antagonize it is by making sure you're getting enough silicon or high silica water, you're getting enough magnesium, and you're getting enough phosphorus. Now, phosphorus is not something that you would supplement. This is going to come from eating muscle meat and animal products. The silica and the magnesium are things that you will need to add to your diet. So that's an example of that's like, magnesium glycinate or malate, and then drinking high silica water, something like Fiji. Lead exposures come from plumbing, from lead pipes, comes from old paint or paint dust. It can come from contaminated soil or water. It's in batteries. It's in ammunition. It can be in industrial dust. And I tested my water here, and it's in the municipal water supply, probably from the lead pipes. And I don't know if that's on our house side or if that's on the municipal water side, but it's testing that it's in there. It's also really high in the paints and the glazes of ceramic products. And so I also tested all of our mugs and our plates that were ceramic. We had these nice ceramic plates and bowls and mugs and stuff, and all of them had high lead in them. And so unless it's certified lead-free, you can assume that your ceramics that have paints and glazes on them have lead contamination. When it comes to mercury, the prime inputs will be from seafood and fish, dental amalgams if you have them, and from coal emissions. Now, there's two different kinds of mercury. There's methyl mercury, which comes from coal emissions and seafood, and inorganic mercury that comes from the dental amalgams. And the best way to mitigate the inputs for those are making sure you're getting enough selenium, zinc, and sulfur amino acids, like things that basically go into making glutathione. Because that's how your body basically conjugates it and eliminates from the body. Moving on to cadmium. Cadmium is generally speaking, the second highest metal toxicity that people have. It's sort of a sleeper toxin. Not many people know about cadmium, but it comes from mining phosphate fertilizers. And so even if you were to eat organic only food where they would not use phosphate fertilizers, it's possible that it is running off into the water supply somewhere else and getting into your food as a result. It also comes from cigarette smoke, batteries, and some of these other things. But the primary source point are phosphate fertilizers. This is something that you cannot avoid. Just like aluminum, it's going to be an ongoing daily exposure. And when I tested my whole family, cadmium was high for everyone. And then lastly is barium. And barium shows up high for many people in oligo scans. And as I was talking about, it disrupts potassium and magnesium, but predominantly potassium. Here are the sources. And my family's not exposed to any of these things on the list here, yet it is high for everyone on the list. And so here's the mechanism I think is happening. When I review everyone's potassium levels and barium levels, the people that have the highest potassium levels have the lowest barium levels. So the way that I read that is that if you are getting enough potassium in your diet, and so how much is enough? That's 4,000 to 4,500, 4,700 milligrams per day from food, which most people are not getting that amount. You will take up more barium intracellularly. There won't be the buffer. So it's very important that you're getting enough potassium from your food, and that in some cases you supplement some of these other things that I mentioned. Next, we're going to talk about plastics. And so plastics themselves are toxic, and this is where you would hear the term micro and nanoplastics. but also the things that make plastics flexible, malleable, so they can be put into food containers, like BPA and other phenol compounds, like phthalates, like PVC that you would find in piping, as well as forever chemicals, PFAS. And so all of these are essentially derivatives of the plastic process. And this is also ubiquitous. Now, it wasn't really an issue 40 years ago, but now it's a big issue. These are all classified as endocrine disrupting chemicals. In other words, they disrupt your hormones. And the primary hormone that it disrupts is estrogen. All of these things increase estrogen, or they mimic estrogen and can bind to estrogen receptors in your body. In other words, it makes your body think that it's producing more estrogen, has a lot of estrogen. And so what are some of those things that occur? Well, if you have estrogen dominance, you likely have low progesterone if you're a female. You have lower testosterone, or low testosterone if you're a male. This can cause weight gain. It can cause mood disorders and mood disruptions. If you're a cycling woman, it's going to disrupt that last week of your cycle and make it very uncomfortable. And if it will also affect fertility. So this is a big driver of lowered fertility now among the population. So how do you mitigate these inputs? Well, as much as possible, you try to avoid plastics in your food packaging. That includes not only buying grocery items, but in large part the to-go items, especially if the food is heated. So that means to-go cups. That means to-go ware, like little plastic containers that the restaurants send your food off in. And even if the outside of the packaging is paper or metal, like canned beverages, and the to-go cups at the coffee shop, in order for paper to not leak, it needs to be lined with plastic. And in order for these drinks and sodas and Olipop and these kinds of things to not leak or leach the metal into the beverage, they have to line it with plastic. So all of these things are lined with plastic. Many of these plastics are leaching these endocrine disruptors into the food or the beverage. And so the way that you offset that is just minimize buying those kinds of things and bring your own stainless steel mugs and bottles for drinking water or for drinks or for coffees or however you're going to do it. Another big place that these show up are in receipts. Receipts have very, very high amounts of BPA in them, so you want to avoid touching them. Also, they're in recycled paper. So these receipts get thrown into the recycling process, and now all recycled paper has BPAs in them. And so the biggest issues with the recycled paper are like the tissue paper that you would blow your nose with, or the toilet paper that have basically estrogen mimics in them. You can also find them in like baby diapers and wipes. So a good alternative for toilet paper and diapers and wipes are looking at the ingredients, first of all, making sure that they are as clean as possible. There's like, if you can't pronounce the name or understand what is in there, it looks like a chemical name, it's not good for you. And to make sure that they are bamboo and not paper, because almost all the paper products are recycled. So the bamboo does not have these endocrine disruptors in them. And lastly, in this third category, we put pesticides. And the most prolific pesticide is glyphosate, or Roundup, as it will be called. And so this is sprayed on food. It's sprayed on people's lawns. You may even use it around your house. This is water soluble. It will go into the water supply. And so it will, it is a significant disruptor of your gut microbiome. It can cause liver and kidney damage. It can be an endocrine disruptor, and there's many other downstream problems. Almost all of these pesticides are endocrine disruptors and negatively modify the microbiome. They can also cause leaky gut. Its formal name is intestinal permeability. And so the best that you can do is filter your water and to buy organic or even better regeneratively farmed foods. And other than that, that's the best way to mitigate the input. So when it comes to detoxing these things, we talked about, with regard to metals, we talked about mineral balancing, or making sure that you've got plenty of minerals that are going to antagonize and buffer against these common metals: aluminum, lead, cadmium, mercury, barium, arsenic being another one. But a very important strategy is sweating. And sweating has been proven to not only help eliminate metals through sweat, but also very good at eliminating the endocrine disruptors in plastics and pesticides. So this means something like 2 to 3 times a week of sweating, and that can be whether it be sauna or exercise. It looks like the best type of sweat is parasympathetic sweating. And so that means that you are relaxing when you're sweating rather than driving like exercise sweating. So a sauna is superior to exercise when it comes to sweating, because the body will be more likely to eliminate under a parasympathetic response than it will be under a sympathetic response, which is always part of exercise. And the main routes of elimination are going to be sweat, if you're sweating, but through urine and through stool. This is how your body's going to get rid of it. A little bit's going to come out of your hair, a little bit's going to come out of your nails, but the primary way is going to be through the urine and the stool, but predominantly the urine. And so it's critical that you are getting enough hydration, you're getting enough fluid that's coming out of your urine, and that you're supporting your kidneys. And so this means making sure that you're getting enough electrolytes and enough water in order to support your kidneys. And then when it comes to stool elimination, you got to actually be moving your bowels. The biggest reason why people have slowdown in bowel movements is usually some form of hypothyroidism. So getting down to figuring out the root cause of that, which is also lowered metabolic rate, these are going hand in hand. These things are what are going to enhance detoxification. So just to recap here, we want to keep our frame of optimizing our metabolic rate. Optimal metabolic rate, optimal energy production means optimal elimination and detoxification. That means a macro and micronutrient dense diet and supplementing the things you're not getting enough of. It means minimizing all of these toxin inputs to the best of your ability. It means sweating a couple of times a week and making sure that you're urinating enough, that you're moving your bowels. And other practical examples are drinking silicon-rich water, using glass and stainless steel cookware and to-go-ware. Buying things in bulk helps you cut down on the plastic exposure to food, avoiding canned drinks and plastic-lined paper cups. It's, by the way, in the paper straws, there's very high BPA in paper straws, worse than in a plastic straw. Eating organic as much as possible and making sure that you're getting plenty of potassium, food-based potassium in your diet. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you next week.